The Anglo-Dutch Wars were a series of wars fought between the English and the Dutch in the 17th and 18th centuries. The main causes of the wars were trade and colonial expansion. Both the English and the Dutch were major maritime powers and engaged in extensive trade and colonization around the world. They often competed for control of trade routes, markets, and colonies, and this competition often led to conflict. The First Anglo-Dutch War 1652–1654 was a conflict fought between the English and the Dutch over trade and colonial expansion. The war was sparked by English attempts to block Dutch trade and naval expansion, and the Dutch responded by attacking English shipping and colonies. The war was fought primarily at sea, with both sides engaging in a series of naval battles. The English were able to capture several Dutch trading posts and colonies, but the Dutch were also able to inflict several defeats on the English navy. In the end, the war ended in a stalemate, with both sides returning to the status quo ante bellum. The Second Anglo-Dutch War 1665–1667 was a conflict fought between the English and the Dutch over trade and naval expansion. The war was sparked by English attempts to restrict Dutch trade and naval expansion, and the Dutch responded by attacking English shipping and colonies. The war was fought primarily at sea, with both sides engaging in a series of naval battles. The English were initially unsuccessful in the war, suffering several defeats at the hands of the Dutch navy. However, the English eventually turned the tide of the war and emerged victorious. The Dutch were forced to cede several colonies and trading posts to the English and agree to restrictions on their naval expansion. The Third Anglo-Dutch War 1672–1674. Soon the English navy was rebuilt. After the embarrassing events in the previous war, English public opinion was unenthusiastic about starting a new one. However, as he was bound by the secret Treaty of Dover, Charles Roman II was obliged to assist Louis Roman XIV in his attack on the Dutch Republic in the Franco-Dutch War. When the French army was halted by the Atlantic waterline, a defense system involving strategic flooding, an attempt was made to invade the Republic by sea. The Ryder gained 4 strategic victories against the Anglo-French fleet and prevented invasion. After these failures, the English Parliament forced Charles to make peace. The Fourth Anglo-Dutch War 1780–1784. The Dutch successful invasion of Britain, placing William Roman III of Orange-Nassau on the English throne as co-ruler with his wife Mary, called in British history the Glorious Revolution of 1688, ended the 17th-century conflict between the Dutch Republic and Britain. This proved to be a Pyrrhic victory for the Dutch cause. William's main concern had been getting the English on the same side as the Dutch in their competition against France. After becoming the British monarch, he granted many privileges to the British Royal Navy in order to ensure their loyalty and cooperation. William ordered that any Anglo-Dutch fleet be under English command, with the Dutch Navy having 60% of the strength of the English. When the Dutch Republic began to support the 13 colonies that rebelled in 1775 against the British Crown, the Fourth War broke out. The war made the Dutch Republic in turn fatally vulnerable to the French and led to regime change. The war had sparked a new round of Dutch shipbuilding, 95 warships in the last quarter of the 18th century, but the British kept their absolute numerical superiority by doubling their fleet during the same period. Overall, the Anglo-Dutch Wars had a significant impact on the balance of power in Europe and the world. They also had a lasting impact on trade and colonial expansion, with the Dutch losing many of their colonies to the English. The wars also established both the English and Dutch navies as major maritime powers and set the stage for future conflicts between the two countries.